Hey everyone, welcome back. You ever just get that sensory overload in a store? Like too much to look at, too many
Oh,
noises?
absolutely. I think we've all been there.
But what if someone else in that same store is totally comfortable? Actually, more than comfortable, like they're energized by it. Today we're going deep on something you guys sent us an article about autism and get this, shopping addiction. Seems like a weird combo, right?
It is interesting, yeah, because at first glance, you wouldn't necessarily put those two things together.
So let's break it down. First off, we got to be clear. We're not talking about just like loving a good sale here.
Right, right, exactly.
Yeah.
This isn't just someone who enjoys a little retail therapy now and then. We're talking about compulsive shopping, which is a whole different ballgame.
So when does it cross that line from I like shopping to this is an actual problem?
Well, the thing is, with shopping addiction, it falls under the umbrella of compulsive disorders. And that means even when someone knows in their head that their shopping is causing issues, like it could be financial problems or stress in their relationships or even just clutter in their living space, right?
Mm.
They still have a really, really difficult time stopping.
So it's like their brain is saying, this is bad, stop doing this, but they can't help themselves.
It can feel like that, yeah.
Hmm.
And that's a big part of why professional help is so important in these situations. It's not just a matter of willpower. It's about getting to the root of the issue and developing healthier coping mechanisms.
So we're already seeing how complex this is, and we haven't even gotten to the autism part yet. Our article mentions how autism can actually change the way someone experiences the sensory side of shopping. What's the connection there?
Yeah, and this is where it gets really fascinating. You know, some stores are just like bombarding you with bright lights, loud music, tons of people all around.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I'm getting a headache just thinking about it.
Right. But for some individuals with autism, those same sensations, which might be totally overwhelming to you or me, they can actually be really stimulating in a positive way.
Wait, so while I'm running for the exit, someone else might be totally in their element because of those same things.
Exactly. It's about experiencing those sights, the sounds, even the textures of products with a kind of heightened sensitivity. It can make the whole shopping experience like almost exhilarating in a way that most people wouldn't necessarily understand.
Okay, see, that's a perspective I'd never even considered before. And speaking of different ways of experiencing the world, our article also talks about how important routines are for many individuals with autism. Could there be a link between that and, the whole shopping thing?
Absolutely, there can be. When you think about shopping, especially online shopping, it often involves a lot of very predictable, repetitive steps. You browse, you click on something you like, you add it to your cart, you go through the checkout process.
Yeah, it's the same steps every time, whether you're buying shoes or like a new coffee maker.
Exactly. And that repetition, that sense of control over this set routine, it can be incredibly comforting, especially for someone who thrives on predictability.
So it's not just about what they're buying, it's the act of buying itself, that repetitive behavior that can actually become almost addictive.
Yeah, you're getting it.
Yeah.
And this is where those executive function challenges can really come into play.
Now, the article mentioned that autism can sometimes involve having a hard time with things like planning ahead or resisting impulses. Things that most of us don't really even think twice about. Can you explain what that means exactly?
Sure. So these abilities to plan, organize our thoughts, make good decisions, control our impulses, they all fall under this umbrella of what we call executive functions. These are like the management team of our brains.
Okay, so they keep everything running smoothly.
Exactly. But when these functions are impaired, which can be the case with autism, it's not as simple as someone just needing more willpower. It's like their brain is literally having a harder time putting on the brakes, even when they want to stop, whether it's an urge to shop or engage in any other compulsive behavior.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like having a faulty braking system in a car. It doesn't matter how much you want to stop. If the brakes aren't working properly, you're going to have a hard time.
Exactly. A perfect analogy.
Okay, but there's another layer to this whole thing, right? Because the article doesn't just stop at autism and shopping. It also brings up anxiety and depression. What's the connection there? Why are those so important to this conversation?
You're right. It's not just one or the other. It's often a combination of things. And that's really important to emphasize. You see, both autism and shopping addiction very often occur alongside other mental health challenges like, as you said, anxiety and depression.
So it's not as simple as saying, oh, they're shopping too much because they're feeling down. We just need to cheer them up.
Right. It's rarely that straightforward. We have to remember that the underlying anxiety or depression needs to be addressed as well. And that's often its own complex journey.
So what we're talking about here is it's like a perfect storm in a way.
In a way, yes.
You've got the sensory experiences, which might be heightened by autism. Then you've got these routines that can be both comforting and potentially lead to compulsive behavior. And then you layer on top of that these underlying mental health challenges. It's a lot to unpack.
It really is. And it highlights how important it is to look at the whole picture, you know,
Mhm.
to consider all these different factors rather than just focusing on one symptom or diagnosis.
It's like we can't just treat the shopping addiction without considering the autism or the mental health aspects, and vice versa. It's all connected.
Exactly. It's about understanding the whole person and how these different facets of their experience are intertwined.
So we're talking about this really complex interplay of things. But knowing all this, what can actually be done about it? The article mentions cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. Is that kind of the go-to for this sort of thing?
That's definitely one of the major players, yeah.
Okay, so how does it work? What's the gist?
So CBT, think of it like this. Imagine learning a whole set of tools and techniques, but instead of fixing, like, a leaky faucet or something, these are for your thoughts and behaviors.
Okay, interesting analogy. So instead of a wrench, it's more like, what, coping strategies?
Exactly. It's about recognizing those triggers that might kind of send you down that rabbit hole of, excessive shopping. It could be a feeling like a wave of anxiety, or maybe even just seeing a notification on your phone, like a sale announcement.
Oh, those notifications are dangerous for sure.
Right.
So you're learning to be aware of those triggers, but then what? You notice it, then what do you do?
That's where those CBT tools come in. It might be learning to do breathing exercises to manage that anxiety you were talking about. Or maybe it's something as practical as, like, setting up filters for your email so you don't see those tempting sales pop up all the time. The key is it's really tailored to the individual person, their specific triggers, and the challenges they're facing.
Makes sense. You can't just have like a one-size-fits-all approach to something this complex.
Exactly. Everyone's different. Everyone's brain is wired a bit differently.
Now, the article also mentions support groups and financial management tools, and those seem, I don't know, almost too practical compared to everything else we've been talking about. Like, are those really that crucial?
They're absolutely essential. And here's why. Imagine someone who's struggling with shopping addiction. Maybe they're dealing with a ton of debt because of it, and they feel completely alone. No amount of therapy is going to fully address the problem if they're constantly stressed about money, or if they feel like they have no one to talk to who understands.
Right, like the shame aspect of it all, feeling like you can't tell anyone.
Exactly. Yeah. It can be very isolating. That's where those support groups come in. They provide that safe and understanding space for people to connect with others who truly get it. They've been in those same shoes.
It's that whole thing of like, okay, I'm not alone in this. I'm not broken. Other people understand what I'm going through.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that sense of community, it's incredibly powerful. It helps to kind of break down the stigma that could be associated with these sorts of struggles, provides a network of support, and people can share coping strategies, encourage each other on their journey. Recovery is rarely a solo mission, you know?
Definitely. And what about the financial management side of things? I can see how that ties into the whole, like, need for control we were talking about earlier. If your finances are a mess, that can be completely overwhelming and ironically might even trigger more shopping as a way to cope, even though it'll probably just make things worse in the long run.
You're exactly right. That's why those financial management tools are so crucial. They can empower individuals to take back some of that control, help them create budgets, start tackling their debt.
So it's not just about the numbers, it's about restoring that sense of agency.
Exactly. It's about feeling empowered to make positive changes in your life one step at a time.
We've covered so much ground today. From the sensory experience of shopping to those executive function challenges, the link with mental health, and now these really practical strategies for actually addressing shopping addiction. What's really sticking with me is we've covered so much ground today, from the sensory experience of shopping to those executive function challenges, the link with mental health, and now these really practical strategies for actually addressing shopping addiction. What's really sticking with me is how interconnected everything is. It's not just about liking to shop, it's about how autism and mental health can play such a huge role.
Absolutely. And I think that's a really key takeaway from our deep dive today. We can't just treat these things in isolation. Shopping addiction, when it's connected to autism and maybe fueled by anxiety or depression or both, it really needs a multi-pronged approach. It's not one thing, it's this whole web.
It's like you said earlier, trying to put a Band-Aid on a deeper wound just isn't going to work. We
Mm,
need to address those root causes, not just try to fix the symptoms on the surface.
100%. And what I find so fascinating is that I think this deep dive has really shown how important that personalized support is, right?
Right.
Because what works for one person might not work for another. It's all about finding the right combination of therapies, coping mechanisms, those support systems that we talked about
Yeah.
that really resonate with the individual and their unique set of experiences.
And that's where, like, really understanding the why behind the behavior is so crucial, isn't it? It's not about judging someone for shopping too much. It's about recognizing that, hey, there might be these deeper things going on.
Exactly. And when we can shift that perspective from a place of judgment to a place of understanding, that's when we can start to approach these challenges with compassion and ultimately provide more effective support.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation, really. I feel like we've just scratched the surface, though.
Oh, there's always more to explore.
There's so much more to learn, so much more to dig into.
And that's the beauty of a deep dive like this one, I think. It kind of sparks your curiosity, it challenges those assumptions we might have, and hopefully it encourages all of us to keep learning, keep asking questions.
Well, on that note, a huge thank you to you for guiding us through this really complex topic with, honestly, so much clarity and insight. I've learned a lot today.
It's been my pleasure, truly. These are important conversations to be having.
And to our listener, if this is what your initial research uncovered, imagine what other fascinating connections are out there, just waiting to be explored. Keep digging, keep asking questions, and keep those deep dives going. Until next time, everyone.